important thing, I think, is really figuring out how you're going to communicate to your prospect effectively that you've done a little bit of homework on them. It doesn't really mean that you have to know every single thing about them, but you really have to be able to communicate effectively like, hey, Morgan, I looked at your LinkedIn. I know that you're focused on these three things. It looks like you have a lot of KPIs around this, this, and this, and that's why I need to talk to you. I'm going to help you with all of these goals, and I'm going to help you to get everywhere that you need to go. Let me know when you have time to talk about some test ideas, and that's it.
What's going on, everybody? It's Morgan J. Ingram here, host of the SDR Chronicles, bringing you motivational advice, tips, and tactics for your sales development career, your sales career, and also your entrepreneurial career, as I believe that sales development is the mantra and vocal point for your career and also for your life, because we do sales development every single day. And today I have Jacqueline with me, who has been heavily involved with Ion Interactive. She's been a BDR there. She's been a BDR team lead. Now she's the BDR manager. And we're going to talk about something today that I'm automatically fired up about, because I do both these things every single day, is how to effectively research prospects in order to have impactful cold call conversations and email conversations. You guys know, keep dialing. That's my thing. So you already know I'm fired up about this. So Jacqueline, tell us a little bit more about yourself and why you're excited about this topic today.
Yeah, absolutely. So like you said, I started out as a BDR. I basically had no idea what I was going to be doing, how I even got into sales. It kind of fell into my lap. I wasn't sure what to do in the beginning. I'd spend a lot of time researching. I'd spend a lot of time trying to figure out exactly what to say to exactly the right person, and I was totally victim of paralysis from analysis. Started getting better at it, ended up moving to Ion Interactive, where I was a BDR here, did really well really quickly, and they eventually promoted me to team leader. From there, I was doing all the BDR work, holding the exact same quota as everyone else, but also hiring, recruiting, coming up with all of our cadences, coming up with all of our outreach, trying to come up and lead different team meetings every single week. And after successfully doing that for a year and never missing quota, and sometimes almost doubling quota, I was promoted to a team manager as of January this year. So now I'm fully responsible for basically finding a way to scale the success of our entire team and help everybody to be more effective, more efficient, and be able to manage all their time better and have better qualified appointments. I guess I'll dive into how we're doing research effectively. The most important thing, I think, is really figuring out how you're going to communicate to your prospect effectively that you've done a little bit of homework on them. It doesn't really mean that you have to know every single thing about them, but you really have to be able to communicate effectively like, hey, Morgan, I looked at your LinkedIn. I know that you're focused on these three things. It looks like you have a lot of KPIs around this, this, and this, and that's why I need to talk to you. I'm going to help you with all of these goals, and I'm going to help you to get everywhere that you need to go. Let me know when you have time to talk about some test ideas, and that's it. I think that not only is the research impactful, but also being able to communicate that research is just as important. When I'm talking to my team and training and showing them exactly what they need to do as far as research, the first thing is looking at the individual. We're going to go take a look at their LinkedIn. We're going to make sure that we can basically fire out a couple different keywords from there and say, okay, we know that these are the things that we help out with and they're on their LinkedIn. This is what I'm going to mention. From there, we're going to look at their website. We're going to make sure that the website is in an industry that we're familiar with. We're going to make sure that they have content that we can work with. We're going to make sure that they basically hit all of our bullet points.
Right.
And once we know that they're a qualified company, then it's really easy to say, hey, it looks like you're doing all the things that all of our customers are doing. It looks like you are focused on all of these different problems, and these are the challenges that we help to solve. So that's why I want to communicate with you. That's why I want to talk.
Yeah, there's a ton of things to unpack there, but it's a good start to the conversation. So I want to go way back, though, to the beginning when you started as a BDR.
Okay.
Were you doing this at all, or were you just running, like I said, running the greenfield, just running the gun, as I like to call it? Like, what was your process when you first started?
Oh, my God, it was embarrassing. So when I first started at Ion, I had some BDR experience at a different company.
Right.
Without knowing it. And I came into this role and they were basically like, okay, Jackie, you have much better tools. You can be working. We had SalesLoft, we had Salesforce, we had everything under the sun. And I was spray and pray. I was just sending out the same emails to every single person. I was using the script that was created for me, and I was opening every call the same way. And I was kind of like just hoping for the best.
Right.
Um, then I got a little bit better at looking at people's Salesforce, which had their LinkedIn right there.
Yeah.
And even the smallest thing is saying, hey, I was looking at your LinkedIn and I saw that you're this role at this company and you're focused on these three things. I realized automatically changed the entire way that I was having conversations and
Mhm.
the way that I was communicating, because people suddenly took me more seriously.
Right.
And then I think the thing that really started to change was I was able to break out my outreach into prioritized lists, and I knew exactly who I wanted to go after. So I was looking at high level targets. I was looking at people that had a lot of engagement. I was looking at people that were um, attending webinars or that were at an event that we were just at, and really making sure that those are people that I was spending a lot of time researching and going to get familiar with. And then towards the end of the day, those were people that maybe had filled out a form to download a white paper or whatnot that weren't the best
Right.
title, and just seeing if they were going to be a good fit or not.
And how long was that into the role until you realized, oh, I just need to use LinkedIn? It was like 4, 5, 6 months in the role, or was it when did the switch like happen for you?
Um, I think the switch happened for me when I first started as a BDR, I was hitting the lowest number of opportunities, but I was having the highest qualified ratio.
Yeah.
And that was when they talked to me about moving up to be the team leader. And I sat down and really started evaluating, like, why did I think that I had such a higher quality ratio? What was I
Yeah.
doing differently?
Right.
And I realized that the reason I was having better quality ops was because I knew the right thing to say to the right people, just from experience I had had in other roles. So I realized that, okay, if I'm going to be talking to demand gen marketers, I know what matters to them, and that's why I'm having more impactful conversations. I'm going to streamline my approach. I know that all day I'm going to talk to demand gen marketers here. Over here, I'm going to reach out to CMOs and create a list for them, or I'm going to work off of buyer personas, or a trigger event. Like I mentioned before, people that
Mhm.
attended this webinar, people that inbounded. By prioritizing that way, it helped me to have streamlined, focused conversations and manage my day more effectively. And I could kind of stay on one track and know, I get what this person cares about. I get what this person is focused on. And it wasn't necessarily doing research on an individual level, but almost bulk research and helping me to understand, okay, I know this buyer persona. I know what matters to them. I can have a really targeted, tailored conversation. And all I have to do is a tiny bit of research on their website to know what industry they're in.
Yeah, and that's big. So let's go across the multitude of platforms that you use to do research, because obviously there's multiple places that you can go. So talk about LinkedIn. What are you looking for when you look at someone's LinkedIn profile, and how do you go about that process? It's an effective email.
So I guess I should give a little background on Ion real quick. We're a software as a service for marketing. We basically help marketers to create interactive content. So our ideal buyers are people that are in marketing, people that focus on content, digital, whatever.
Mhm.
What I'm basically doing is I'm looking at their LinkedIn's and I'm saying, okay, I know that a digital marketing manager is probably focused on number of conversions. They care about having a great user experience. They care about, these challenges. So I want to look at their LinkedIn and see if I can find any of that on there. And then knowing that that's a challenge that we help to solve, I want to leverage that.
Mhm.
If I'm looking at somebody in demand gen, I know that their challenges are typically around lead generation or lead quality. So I'm going to look at their LinkedIn real quick and I'm going to see, have they been endorsed for lead gen? Have they been endorsed for lead qualification? Maybe they have a description on there that talks about what they've done to really help
Mhm.
empower their sales teams. And I'm going to use their own language in my outreach, specifically in voicemails, and say, hey, I saw all of these things, and I'm 100% confident that given that this is your main focus, I can help you. And it makes people trust me more because they know that I've actually done a little bit of homework, looked on their LinkedIn's, and I can pull out those 2, 3 keywords that are relevant to them, and it's not the same message that I'm leaving to their neighbor in the next cubicle.
Yeah, and that's super important. So do you send out those messages at the same time, or do you spread them out?
I typically send them out around the same time. I add between 3 to 5 people from one account at a time when I'm doing my account-based marketing.
Yeah.
So for me, I'll do 3 people at an account, and I'm going to try to get 3 people with different titles. I don't want to reach out to 3 digital marketing managers.
Yeah.
Maybe I'll do digital demand and content, and I'll look and say, hey, Morgan, I reached out to John. I obviously know that he's focused on this, but you look like you're focused on this. Thought it might make sense for all of us to connect and talk about some ways that we can help you with these goals and these challenges. Knowing other people on the team, knowing that they interact with each other is so valuable and impactful. And all I have to do is say that in a voicemail. I don't typically change up my emails very much. And then people will respond to my email and say, hey, thanks so much. I got your voicemail. Or, hey, me and John spoke about it. Thanks for bringing that up in your voicemail. We
Right.
should all talk.
For sure. So like the voicemail I want to talk about, because I have a love-hate relationship with voicemails. But
I'm love.
I have a love-hate, or like it's really like love-hate. So we're gonna talk about that in a minute. But I want to talk about what you're pulling from LinkedIn, right? So you said you go on that platform, but are you looking at their summary? Are you looking at their job description? Are you looking at their the testimonials they've gotten from other people? Are you looking at influencers they're following? Like, what exactly are you trying to derive? And are you only looking for a bullet point? Are you looking for 3 to 5? Like, what's your tactic?
I'm looking for a bullet point. I am looking for, like I mentioned earlier, I think that the most important thing as an SDR is being able to communicate what you've learned. It isn't about being able to repeat and regurgitate information.
Right.
So I almost say the same thing in every reach out. I say, hey, I wanted to talk to you because I saw that you're focused on X, Y, Z, and I can help you reach those goals, blah, blah, blah. X, Y, Z are 3 key bullet points that I took out of reading everything. So I just do a skim. It doesn't take me more than 30 seconds to look at somebody's info, to look at somebody's title, to look at their history and say, hey, I saw that you started out in sales, now you're in marketing. Obviously, you know how important it is to better enable your sales teams given your history. Want to talk to you about some ways we can help with that. Hey, wanted to talk to you because I saw that you have goals on lead gen, lead quality. Would love to talk to you about some ways we can help with that. I think that research is obviously important to the SDR role, but knowing how to just pull really valuable parts from somebody's LinkedIn are way more impactful than knowing everything about everything they've ever done in the last 10 years.
Yeah, I think that's important because you want to understand what their priorities are and get it in the right way, and you don't want to lose yourself. And I know you start on LinkedIn, so let's go beyond that because I think LinkedIn has a lot of powerful resources, and like that's where I go to. That's where I find my bullet points and my priorities I don't want to go after. But sometimes you can't do that. People's LinkedIn is just bare. It's a wasteland. It's a desert. So when you see that, do you go to Twitter next? Do you go to their website? Do you Google them? What's your next tactic to research?
So I definitely go to the website if they don't have a great LinkedIn, and I'm going to do my very best to figure out, here is your website. I saw that you guys have campaigns around this, or it looks like you have a big event coming up. I try to say something of relevance and say, tried to find you on LinkedIn. You weren't on there. So I don't even know if this is a focus for you, but I saw that you guys are trying to drive people to events, or I saw that you guys are trying to create a bunch of really great content to better educate your audiences. I can help with that. So I spend a lot of time trying to find a way to build rapport and be totally truthful and honest. I don't want to come across like I know everything. If I don't know their LinkedIn profile and I don't know their title, I can't make those assumptions. So I like to be very communicative and, hey, I tried to look you up on LinkedIn. I tried to do my homework. It wasn't available. I don't want to be a nuisance and waste your time. Is this something that you focus on or is it not? Because I don't want to bother you if this isn't of interest.
Yeah, and when you go to the website, do you do case studies? Do you go to the summary, like their mission statement? Like what do you try to pull from?
So my company, we focus on content marketing. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to look at the content that they're creating and basically determine if I think that there's a way that we can help them to improve it. So
if they're not making content, it's like you need to immediately see what we're doing.
Yeah, like we'll take like a PDF and put it into like a quiz or an assessment or something. So to me, if you have no content, I'm like, bye, I'm out of here, and you're out of my reach out, and I'm gonna go find somebody that is putting effort towards content marketing.
Exactly.
So that's my homework. But I think for every industry, it's different, right? If you're in sales, you're not looking at the website as much about that. You're probably looking more at what are they doing as a sales team? Do I see field marketers on their LinkedIn? Do I see that they're so you kind of have to know your own audience and then figure out how to do that research to know and understand how that organization works.
Yeah, because at Terminus, I reached out to marketers. So I would look at the mission statement and I would look at case studies to kind of see if there was relative customers. And then when it comes to sales, since doing sales training and sales consulting right now, then it's more so like, are you hiring people and like,
Mhm.
what are you looking to do with those salespeople, like you said? So yeah, I think it's different for each person and who we're reaching out to, but the website is going to give you all the answers because you can find out a lot of stuff really quick. Like you can figure out what products that they're selling and you can be like, well, it looks like you're selling a ton of products. So you probably need a ton of content on these products. So we need to talk, like stuff like that. I think you just got to be resourceful on the website, but you can find all that stuff in what it takes you probably 3 to 5 minutes, maybe 5 to 10 minutes to find what you need to find.
Ideally less than. I really try to make my prospecting as efficient as possible.
Yeah.
So what I do, we have Sales Loft. I can actually have the dialer up on the screen, and what I'm trying to do is have that dialer going, and while it's ringing, I'm looking at their LinkedIn. The second that they pick up the phone, I have their website open.
Okay.
Because by that point, I should already know their LinkedIn because I've been looking at while the phone was ringing. And now I'm ready to move on to the next thing and say, okay, I need to have an idea of their industry because if they're picking up, I want to be personalized and relevant.
Do you keep notes? So I guess two questions here. Do you time block to do prospecting and then do you to do research? And then from that research and triggers and events and bullet points that you find, do you put them in an Evernote to look at while you're on a call or you just go on the website?
I don't have Evernote, unfortunately, so I
Okay.
wasn't doing anything like that. For me, my strategy was adding 15 people at a time. So I would add 5 different accounts, 3 different prospects per account. And so I'd look at one account, try
Is
to
that
find
a
my 3
day?
people that are best fit. What was that?
Every single day?
Yeah, that was my
Okay.
best practice. Walk
Okay.
in the morning and do that.
Okay.
So I would have basically my 15 new people, my 3 new prospects, my 5 new accounts, and all I would do is look at the website once, get a feel for it, and then I would have handpicked those prospects, so it wasn't a big deal for me to know, like, okay, this
Right.
is how I'm going after them. And then the reach out was always pretty simple because to find 15 people, 5 accounts is minimal, 30
Not,
minutes.
not that hard. If you know what you're doing, it should not be difficult. Yeah. So at the beginning stages where I didn't know anything at all, I think I was putting in like 60 to 70 people. Like I was just like, I was just going hard. I was like, I got to get out there. Like, I don't know what I'm doing. I need conversations. Like now I put in 10 to 15 people every single day. So, but I'm more proficient, right? With messaging, with research, with my outreach. So I'm prepared for that. And so I'm putting myself in a good light to where I need to go. Um,
Mhm.
do you use Twitter in any way?
I was guilty. I was not a big Twitter person,
Okay.
but I probably should have been.
Yeah. No, I mean, it's the reason I use Twitter was because I always found some cool, like me and my friend would always find some screenshot we could take and we would screenshot it and add it in the email and be like, all right, like this is exactly what you're talking about. Like you can't hide. So we use the screenshot to basically like, you can't hide. Like you said this, like we need to talk about this. So like you can't run away from it. So screenshots were always another way we did research, but I want to move on to something else that I mentioned earlier, but we're coming back to it. So voicemails, like tell me about how do you approach your voicemails and why do you love voicemails?
I and my team will make fun of me for this. I talk about it all the time. I love the voicemail. I'm like, if anybody's like, "Oh, today's a no voicemail day," I'm like, "No such thing as a no voicemail day. We always leave voicemails." To me, the voicemail is really valuable because it's a great opportunity for you to one practice the conversation that you're going to have in advance.
Mhm.
So for me, like I've left you 3 voicemails already saying what I can help you with. When you finally pick up, I know how that conversation is going to go, and I'm going to say, "Does my name sound familiar? I want to talk to you about X, Y, Z," and I know what that's going to be. Otherwise, if I'm just leaving no voicemail, then you pick up, and I haven't been practicing that every time. I haven't been looking at your LinkedIn every time. I don't feel as fluid and as comfortable. And maybe it's my 4th reach out, but I haven't looked at your LinkedIn in 3 times to leave a voicemail. Like,
Yeah.
I'm going to be in trouble. So to me, like, that's my way of constantly refreshing myself and almost doing a mini study session on who is this person and what am I going to say to them. Um, I also think that the voicemail is a really great opportunity to basically get your value prop across really quickly because nobody wants to listen to a voicemail that's more than 30 seconds long. So if you can solidify your voicemail, then you can solidify your intro for any conversation that you're going to have. I think it's great practice for all of our new BDRs, but even for our seasoned reps, it's really just a great way to know, like, all right, I really understand this person, and the voicemail is a way for me to get all my jitters out at the beginning of the day.
Right.
When somebody picks up and I have a conversation, I'm not like, oh crap, I didn't think anyone could answer.
Yeah, we've all been through that. I think the first couple calls I made when I first started, I never expected people to actually answer the phone. So I was just like, whatever, I'll just make calls. And like, if someone, it's whatever. And then when you actually get someone to pick up, you're like, your whole heart stops. You're like, this is Morgan. And you just like, you lose your train of thought. And then you sound like an idiot and then they don't even care. And then you've lost your chance. It's probably the one phone call you're going to have all day. So it's like, oh crap, I should have paid attention. So
Yeah.
I think, yeah, the voicemail like essentially keeps you in the game. And it doesn't make you feel like you're just going through tasks. So I feel like a lot of people make cold calls over and over and over again and aren't getting anyone. They're just like, oh, I'm just clicking this button because I have to. But if you leave the voicemails, it's effective. And also, I know from personal experience, a lot of people might say, you know, thanks for your voicemail, and they'll respond back to the email. That happens
Right.
sometimes for me. But the reason I hate voicemails is because I know that sometimes people hear my voicemail and I'll call them again and it goes to one ring, which means that they blocked my number because they don't want to talk to me. That's the only reason I don't like voicemails, because it exposes yourself too early, but they're more effective than not effective, if that makes sense.
Yes, that does make sense.
Yeah.
I think the other thing that I really like about the voicemail is it's a way for me to feel like that person is genuine or not. Emails, like, you know, I've definitely gotten emails from people and I'll see them and I'm like, oh, that's interesting. And especially since I've been promoted, I've been getting prospected a lot more.
Yeah.
And, you know, I'll get an email and I look at it and I'm like, oh, that could be interesting. And then the SDR actually calls me and they sound like they have no idea what they're talking about. It's coming from a script. And
Yeah.
they're like, hi, Jacqueline, did you get my email? And I say yes. And they say, oh, terrific. Well, I'm calling to follow up on that. And I wanted to see if you'd be interested in talking for 10 minutes. And I'm like, not anymore. So,
That's a weak intro, guys. Don't do that.
right. So I think for me, the voicemail is kind of like saying, I have real personality. I'm more than just the text on the page. When I actually do call you, I want you to believe that, like, I'm a person that you can talk to. I'm a peer. I'm confident. And it kind of gives that first impression. For me personally, I haven't had any or that much experience with anyone blocking my number. It's maybe I've been lucky, but
You haven't. No, I notice it because I got sales off too. So it might be just because I don't have my local dial yet. That could be the reason. But I have experience at Terminus when I had local dollar is like you would call someone enough and they would eventually either send you straight to voicemail or they would block you. And it could just because I make a lot of phone calls and I call people early in the morning. So they probably are like, this guy's insane. I call people like really early. So I get higher connects when I do that, but I don't like calling people during office hour time, like normal 9 to 5.
oh, okay.
I call
So
people
you
out.
like the 7 to 9 and like the lunchtime?
Yeah, I'll do like kind of like, and this is kind of inching into it, but 8:15 to 9:30 and like 4:45 to like 6:00, like 6:30. That's when I normally make my calls. So I catch people as they're leaving work or going into work. And so I think sometimes people are like, this person's insane. Like, why are they calling me before work? And they're like, I'm blocking this number because like I don't understand. And so if I leave a voicemail, they're probably like, oh, it's just a guy calling me early in the morning and I'm done with them. So I feel like that might be the perception that I'm getting. But I mean, overall, it's like the voicemail is still effective because they at least know who you are. And also I see the voicemail being more effective than anything else is because most people don't leave voicemails. And I always say, like, if someone's calling me and like I'm busy and I'm running around and they don't leave me a voicemail, it wasn't that important. Like it was not that urgent. So
That's the thought process that I have too. I
no,
get a million calls a day on my cell phone and I won't ever call any of them back. But if
no.
someone leaves me a voicemail and I'm like, oh, it's somebody like, that's interesting, chances are I'm not going to call them back. But if they send me an email or they get me at my desk, I'm like, oh, I know who you were. That was interesting. Yeah, I'll
Right.
talk to you.
Exactly. And so that's where I feel like the voicemail is effective. It's just an added touch in a world of craziness and noise.
I do like to, I don't know if you've ever seen Sales Loft's VIP cadence. They mention actually doing a call with local dial on, no voicemail, and then doing a call later in the day with like local dial off with voicemail. So trying to mix up like your approach and looking like different people, and that way you can call multiple times in a day.
There it is. That's what I need to do. See, now you've given me more tactics to call people. You like all the prospects are gonna be like, oh no, you shouldn't have told them that.
Sorry, I'm so sorry, prospect.
No, I love it. I'm fired up now. Like now they're gonna be like, who is this guy? Like, I'm back. Thought you blocked me, but you didn't. I'm back. That's a hidden gem for me. I'm glad I learned that. I didn't even know. That actually makes a ton of sense. I don't even know why I didn't think of that. So I appreciate that.
You're welcome. That's what I'm here for.
So cool. So we're touching on a lot of points here. We're talking about cold calling. We've talked about email, what social selling, and also from a video perspective, I know that's blowing up as well. Like, how can you do your research there? Or are you taking everything that you do from an email perspective, because you're doing it by personas and priorities, and now you're implementing that into your videos and your social selling? Like, talk a little bit more about that.
Okay, so we have different cadences for different events, obviously, and different
Yep.
outreach. So like somebody comes to a webinar, I already have emails that say like, thanks for attending, or so sorry that you missed it, whatever. So I have pre-written cadences that seem personalized and tailored, at least for the event. Same thing for the buyer persona. I have a pretty I have my generic one, then I have my for specific
Right.
outreach for different titles. I completely lost my train of thought.
You're good. You're
Basic,
good.
um, so I guess with, let's say, emails, if I'm trying to reach out for a specific outreach, then they're
Mhm.
basically pre-written within the cadence. Phone calls and voicemails, that's when I'm trying to get a lot of my research out and trying to talk a lot about what I've already learned. Um, when it comes to video, so I have to basically say this, I have no choice. Ion, we create interactive content, like I
Yeah.
mentioned. So we'll create something like an assessment. And then we have a tool in there called Sell Side. So you can literally see how people answered every single question within an assessment.
Hmm.
So what I'll do is anyone who filled out that assessment, I'll do a video and I'll basically do a screen share and let them see, hey, Morgan, I saw that on a scale from 1 to 5, you think that you're getting a 1 on engagement. I saw that on a scale from 1 to 5, you're getting a 2 on conversions. I saw on a scale from 1 to 5, you don't think that you're differentiating from your competitors. Based on the facts and the numbers that you're giving me, I think that there's a lot of room for improvement. And I want to talk to you about a couple different ways that we can help. So my vidyard is basically me showing the power of interactive content, but then it's also helping me to have more enabled conversation and understand them at a deeper level in the funnel and really understand their pain points and hit that home. So that's when I'm using Vidyard in my research, is basically taking the information they've given me and using that for more of a two-way dialogue.
Yeah, no, I like that. That makes a ton of sense. And I use the same thing. So I have my like short pitch, long pitch, and also value prop and priorities for each persona. So if I'm reaching out to a certain sales development director or VP sales director, sales enablement, I have my messages for that. And then I implement that into video and also my phone calls. So I'm the same way. And I think it makes it easier, because you don't want 80,000 Google Docs around of like, oh, for video, I need to do this. It's like, just, you already have the messages there. Just, it's a different medium and a different platform. So you just
Right.
articulate your message there.
Yeah. And then for social selling, we've actually found that shorter is way better.
Mhm.
One thing that we've been doing, it's so simple, but just like literally the pre-written messages on LinkedIn, the happy birthday, the congrats on a
Right.
new role, you send that plus one other sentence, like congrats on the new role, 5 years is awesome.
Yeah.
Something so basic. And you go back 2-3 days later and you say like, hey, sure that you got a million messages, so I didn't want to get bombarded. Was looking at your profile and definitely think we should talk. Do you have time maybe later this week for 15 minutes? And
Yeah.
almost giving no value prop. And then they usually go, they look at your profile, they see what you're about, and they give
Right.
you a yes or no. And we found that that's been proven to be way better than us writing a whole paragraph and trying to sell them on our value prop and
Yeah.
giving a
Everyone's doing that though.
conversation.
It's too much. It's
I
too much.
know.
Everyone's doing it. Everyone's doing it for sure. So
So
is there, as we kind of wrap this up, is there something that you have seen or you've done in the past 6 months that most people aren't talking about, but has been very beneficial for you from a research standpoint?
I think for me, finding a way to research at scale has been the biggest thing for me. So understanding my buyer persona to the fullest. We created a buyer matrix that says these are people for this profile, these are people for this
Yep.
profile. And then we break it down by what are their challenges, what are their goals, what are internal things that they're worried about, what are external things that are impacting them. And by doing that, I print it out. I keep it like hanging on all my new BDR's walls. And as soon as they're having a conversation with somebody that meets one of those personas, they don't have to do as much research, because they can say, hey, I know that you're probably facing these challenges. Hey, I know that you probably have goals around this. As what I'm saying making sense? So it's kind of taking a lot of the guesswork out and then being able to match, like, okay, there's 3 words on their LinkedIn and there's 3 words that are on my persona. I know that this is going to align and I know how to have a streamlined conversation.
No, that's awesome. I think that's really, really beneficial. But one thing that I did when I joined John was very similar, and this is slightly time consuming. So most reps will probably not do this, but it has been the complete game changer for me. So what I did is our top 5 personas. I had top five uh, priorities for them. And then out of those top 5 priorities, I created top 5 messages for all 5 of them. And then out of those 5 messages, created voicemail scripts, phone call scripts, and also cadence emails. So something that you can do if you're a rep. It sounds like Jacqueline's doing the same thing. And it just makes your research a lot easier because you go through the work of finding the priorities, finding all these different things. But once you find all that stuff out, it actually makes your conversations a lot easier, and you're way more confident in your emails and your approach. And you actually feel like you're speaking the same language as them, which is what you want to be able to do at the end of the day.
We do the same thing. We use SalesLoft as well. And so
Yeah.
we'll actually do the voicemail with the sample script in there, followed by the email that's pre-written. And so it says, based on this persona or based on this trigger event, this is the messaging that we want to leave behind.
Yep.
And then the other thing that we've started doing that we see really impacting us is creating different messaging for, like, let's say it's an invitation to a webinar for higher personas and lower personas. So people that are directors and up versus, managers and below, and saying to directors and up, hey, I'm sure that you're super busy and don't necessarily have time for this, but we'd love for you to share this with your team. We've found that by doing that, they're more likely to share it. And we found that the people who might not have, the managers and people below, actually attend. And then there's more buy-in from the entire organization, and everybody's kind of like, boss, Ion's awesome. Like, we should look at them. They do really cool stuff. Their webinar was great. It's everything we want.
Right. And that's everything you want. That's what you want to hear from every single prospect.
Right. So.
Exactly. Cool. Well, Jacqueline, thank you so much for hopping on the SDR Chronicles today. Last question I ask every single person that hops on the show. What is your number one piece of advice that you give to SDRs as they enter into their new role?
I think the number one thing is to constantly be creative. Something that's going to work for you on day 1 isn't going to work for you on day 30. And they always say there's this bell curve when it comes to the conversation, and you start talking not very much when you first start as an SDR. And then all of a sudden you start learning everything, and you start talking more and more and more and more and more. And then you realize, like, okay, I do better when I talk less. I think that staying creative and figuring out how you're going to manage all the information that you're taking in, thinking about how you're going to be impactful in reaching out to people, never just saying, I created this cadence on day 1, it's good enough now. Constantly researching, constantly looking at what are best practices that all these organizations are putting out, and then using that to constantly be changing everything, whether it's weekly, quarterly, monthly, and knowing that, like, creativity is the only thing that's going to keep you going, because the SDR role is just a lot of calls, it's a lot of emails, it can get mundane if you aren't keeping it fresh.
Exactly. Yeah, it's a grind. So I agree with that 100%. You have to be able to creative, so you stay on top of mind on what you're doing. You don't get lost and just like, what am I doing? So I agree with that 100%. So Jacqueline, thank you so much for coming on the SDR Chronicles once again. As I always say, guys, keep dialing, and I'll see you guys soon.